crash. So my talk is called Exploring the Doorbell Principle, but in fact I'm not going to explain how a doorbell works. It's explained in my paper, you can read that. It says that I'm from the University of Helsinki, but I'm retired. I've been retired 4 years and I have actually no association or support with this institution anymore, so it should actually really say hobbyist there. So I'm going to start the talk by, well, some of you will have seen, oh, I haven't got my mic on. Sorry, I'll put it on because they're probably going to record this or something. Just a moment, please. I switched it up. Yeah, can you got it now? I'm curious. Okay, some of you will have been in the performance we did with Alejandro on the first morning, and you will have seen that I was using this what I've called now the pulse pod, and I can explain this a little bit more later in the talk, hopefully. But first of all, I'd like to start by using the first 5 minutes to play a little piece, a video of a piece, which is called Gulf Stream, and I'll start from 19 seconds in or something. Full screen. And in this piece, I'm using this instrument here. Okay, so that was a performance given by myself and my dear colleague Johanni Liimetain, who is the former professor. He's also retired, lives down the road from me, and he's the former professor of sound design at the Theatre Academy. The same in the same school as we. If you look in the background of that thing, you'll notice that there's some loudspeakers made out of metal buckets, and I might have time to get back to that story later. But anyway, the instrument that I was using for that, and it was being heavily processed by the Soma Cosmos granulator. The instrument I was using is this, which is one iteration of this technique of the electrode, touch electrode, which if it's at the lowest level, a level of volume, then you will just barely hear the thing moving over the surface when it's quiet, or you can have a little bit of string here, which gives a bit of resistance. And when it's very low volume, then you only get these kind of touching sounds. But as you go higher in volume with the volume, then you can start to get different forms of oscillation with lower frequencies or possibly higher frequencies. This is a very low frequency there. And one of the reasons I've made this plate with various bends in it and so on is that the acoustics of the material you're touching affects very much the kinds of sound that you're going to get out of it. So if you bend the plate in different places, then basically you're creating different tensions in the acoustical material. And yesterday when I was playing the gong has maybe fewer possibilities for variation, partly because a gong it's not very conductive material. It has its own resistance. There's about already 200 ohms of resistance, and often the gongs are covered with lacquer, so you're actually not getting even to the metal completely. Whereas here, there's no lacquer. You're reaching the conductive material immediately. But this has fairly different. It sounds very different in different parts, and it's actually created asymmetrically so that it would be different in different places. So this is the iteration of the instrument that I was playing. Sorry, seem to. Okay, and this is the circuit. But you can see, if you want to know more about the circuit, this is the electrode is visible there. It's just the same electrode, and basically the sound is it's a digital signal because it's only ever on and off, and it goes through a diode. And in this particular iteration of the instrument, which I've now called the pulse pod, there are 4 diodes, and I managed to break it already. Just a moment. Again, there's a volume knob. And these 4 diodes are added together, so they actually act as OR gates back into the transducer. And I think German people probably like OR gates a lot because they're always saying order to me, order. And so I think they probably like ORs. And okay, so that's this iteration of the instrument, which is a kind of chaos generator, you could say, that's made inside a jar that's you use in the kitchen for storing lentils and things like that, you know. So that's another iteration of the instrument. The first iteration of the instrument altogether was made for a performance of sound theater performance with the tongue-in-cheek title of Digitale Informationstheorie. This is because it's a digital signal, and so I was trying to generate some German language humor there, but probably not very successfully. And so I'd like the first iteration of that happened in a very darkened space, underground space. This is a picture of it, and we were playing lots of pieces of metal that were attached to an old mattress, and there were 8 channels of this technique being used at different points in the mattress, and I used quite a large base transducer so that the actual mattress vibrated. People thought because there was no amplification in this case, the mattress itself is the amplification. So it sounds in the space very loud and almost frighteningly loud. And people thought when I was touching and Jussi were touching these electrodes that we were going to set something on fire and we were welding something or something. I had various imagination about what we were doing. But we did a later performance which was in a shopping center, and there you can actually see in the shopping center performance that I'll play a little bit of it, and you can see you can actually see what it consists of. And you can sense that it's very noisy in the space. And if I go to later in the work, then you see that my colleague starts to wrap me up in tin foil, and I can attach myself to the mattress, and I can actually play my own body attached to the mattress because I'm actually conductive. It's one way of developing a career as a conductor, even if you're not very good at conducting in any other way. Okay, so there was various iterations of this first instrument, which I developed for that piece of sound theater. So another iteration that I made was, which I'm perhaps most proud of, if I'm allowed to be proud of my achievements, then was the electroacoustic cello called the Skillo, which is made out of an old 1960s ski, which I made for the cellist Sergio Castrilon, and he's actually used it in an album now, all throughout an album, which is mentioned here, psychedelic rock album. But I'll show you a little bit of a video from the Skillo from about 90 minutes in, where you can see that the cello, it's not only electroacoustic cello, although it's a real cello, you can play Tchaikovsky on it if you want to. But But it can be played with a bow that is conductive. It has a kind of electrode running through the bow in the form of a copper wire. So just move it further. So it's a cello, but it's an electroacoustic cello. In the sense, it has an amplifier in it, and you can feed it back almost on itself. But in actual fact, it's also it has these noise circuits essentially using the same technique of creating noise by running the bow over the strings, which are conductive. So this was the skillo, which was another kind of instance of this technique. So another one I made was a feedback cage based on the same technique for a celebration of 40 years of microphony. Or was it 50 years actually? 50 years of microphony one by Stockhausen. Sorry, I'm talking complete nonsense. That's another piece. It was 50. It was a celebration of the anniversary of 4 minutes 33 seconds by Cage. So this was called John in a Cage because my first name is John, actually John Andrew Bentley. So here I am in the cage, and I created a kind of electroacoustic cage which vibrates in the same way as the mattress does, but in a physical way. So there's no loudspeakers involved in here. It's the actual cage itself and the bucket in the cage are the things that vibrates. So I'm doing this in the context of something I called sound theater, which is the creating unusual instruments has been part of this idea of sound theater since about the year 2000. And my idea for the genre is to merge electronic improvisation, which is the thing I mainly do with people, with performance art. And I've made maybe 30 works over the years since about 2000 with this idea of sound theater. Sometimes the electronic improvisation is more to the fore, and sometimes the performance art is more to the fore. I would say that in the case of the mattress in the cave there, then it was probably performance art was more to the fore. But sometimes it's a bit like this two-way fader on a thing. It's, you have it nearer to one end or nearer to the other end on a DJ platform. The ends that we're nearer to are either electronic improvisation on the one hand or performance art on the other. And so, yes, I say here that my instruments are designed to bemuse, amuse, maybe even demuse or emuse. So that's really what I'm using this technique for, but it's by no means the only technique that I use for creating these kind of instruments. But it's featured quite strongly, this particular in works. So this is about the sixth iteration of this feedback. And you have to bear in mind that it's not an audio feedback, it's an electromechanical feedback. And the audio aspect of it is that it can be amplified, but on these instruments I have an output which allows me to connect it to the analog synthesizer, or it's basically a voltage output, and I can use it to trigger various things. What I did on the performance on the first day was I divided, how much time have I got? 1 minute. I divided that digital signal up first of all by 2 to create a more full-bodied audio signal, and then I divided it up by 8. So every 8 alternations of the digital signal were actually causing the triggers that were used for triggering the envelopes. So, and then of course, after that you can, using the various envelope controls, you can then delay the repetition of the envelope. So the envelope, the maximum repetition would be 8 divisions of this, and then you go down from that, you can have longer envelopes with that. So you can combine the audio signal coming from it and the envelope signal from it. And this also had the trigger output, which is going to the synthesizer, which Alejandro was using to control his make noise synthesizer. So that's basically the story of these things. And the artistic side of the story is the sound theater that I've been doing. So that's the end of the talk. So thank you.